people who hurt people or people hurt themselves.
Yes.
Hurt people hurt other people. However, free people help free other people.
Welcome to the Extraordinary Lives podcast, where we talk about lives that go beyond the ordinary to the extraordinary, with the extra being Jesus. We'll be encouraged with amazing stories and helpful insights from the lives of ordinary people who have that extra, that supernatural difference that only Jesus can give. I'm your host, Ellen Bennett. Thanks for joining us. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to welcome today Suzy Ryan, who is not only a wonderful middle school English teacher, but she has just published her first book, which is based on her life. And I can't wait to talk with her about that today. Welcome, Suzy.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Ellen. Thank you so much. Oh, so exciting.
Yes. Well, tell us a little bit about you. What are you up to these days? Tell us about your family, etc.
Well, I am a middle school teacher, which is my day job. But for the last 20 years, I have listened to their stories. I have taken parts of my story growing up. And I like to say it's my husband's big word. It's an amalgamation of scenes and composite characters. And I turned it all into a fictional novel to offer a bridge of hope to my students who have shared so much pain with me over the years. I'm so honored that they would share their stories. And I think what happens, Ellen, is because I suffered trauma growing up, that they know that I can be trusted and they can share their trauma. And I'm so thankful that I can tell them they're going to be okay because I know I'm okay. That all of this will make them resilient, all this adversity, and they are victors, they're not victims, and they're going to be able to use this to fulfill their destiny. And I always tell them that you can't scare me. Whatever you tell me has either happened to someone I know, in my family, to me, so we can get through this together.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I'm just so grateful that they have you for a teacher and as a mentor. I can understand how they would feel so welcome to come to you because you are just such a warm, friendly person. We were talking about this earlier, that you just make people feel like they're your best friend and it's all genuine. And I love that. So I am thrilled to actually meet you in person after texting each other for a while online.
It's true. You know, I did feel a connection with you. And I used to, when I was growing up, I would be afraid of my personality because people growing up would be cruel or say, oh, you're fake. And I'd be like, oh, no, this is just me. I do love getting to know people. And I became a teacher, I think, because I could talk and not be in trouble for talking too much.
That's great.
I could be really enthusiastic and excited because that's who I am naturally. And I love that I've been able to teach. And I want to tell you that I didn't always embrace who I was. I tried to keep myself calm or tried to keep myself who I thought I should be because growing up, well, I'll say it like this. I know you're a teacher too. So when you get ready to teach, every year you have to do CPS training, Child Protective Services.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes.
So you have to identify kids that have had trauma. You have to identify neglect, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, and you have to do that every year because what you need to do is identify these kids that are suffering to try to help them.
Right.
So every year that I do that, it triggers me because I suffered all of them.
Wow.
And so every year that I would do that, it would trigger me and I'd be like, oh. But every year would help me really embrace my past and what had happened to me. And then I started writing and, journaling and writing down scenes. And I think I always knew I would use the pain of my past to put it in a book to try to help others. I always knew that. Even though I was a business major at first, I wasn't even an English major. I went back and got my teaching credential and then I became an English teacher. But I think it was all the path. God ordained to give me the building blocks I needed then to finally write my novel. So as I did the CPS training and then the kids would start talking to me and sharing with me, I really started to embrace my true personality, which is I do really love to connect.
That's
So
great.
I love to connect, and I
Yes.
don't have to apologize for how God made me. Now,
Right.
do I sometimes need to make sure that I give other people a chance to talk?
Yes, yes.
Because don't we all have
Right.
to take the best parts of our personality, make sure that those are front and center. But what I love about teaching middle school is they love you. You show up and they love you
Yes.
because you are there for them, and that's all they want. And Ellen, as I really reflect on my life, of all that happened to me, and it was painful, it was rough, but the hardest part for me was growing up and not feeling loved by my parents. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't love me, but for their own reasons, they couldn't show it.
Wow.
And as I see these middle school kids sitting in my class, a lot of them don't feel loved.
Wow.
So I want to be the person that says, you are loved.
That's great.
You are loved. You are loved, and show them that's all they want. That's all we need, is to feel that someone loves them and understands. So I've been inspired by being able to show love. And then, when you do that, it refills what maybe you didn't get. Does that make sense?
That's great. That's an interesting point. Yeah. Well, let's go back to this beginning and find out a little bit about your background and also how you came to know Jesus.
So I shared that I really needed to feel loved by my parents who were struggling with their own issues. And it was really amazing because all through high school, I was what you would call, I can identify it now, but it was performance-based security. I was only as good as the last thing I did. So I needed to perform to feel worthy. And thankfully, I did like to get good grades. And that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's not, but I needed to get good grades. I was also in track. I was a sprinter, and I was very blessed to be a really good sprinter. So I grew up in Kansas, and Kansas is phenomenal because they love their athletes. They are so supportive of this little small town. So I was very successful in track. And that's a great thing. I was a sprinter, and I won state gold medals and set records. But really, it was just to fill the hole that I had, that I didn't feel loved. And now, of course, I can reflect back on it. Then I didn't know. I just knew I needed to have another victory. And the victory that I had, it only lasted a little while. And then I needed another victory and another victory and another victory. And it's really a cruel God to serve performance, because you never really feel okay about yourself. I feel like even teary thinking about that poor little Suze that just needed more and more and more victories. And I was a cheerleader, I was on the A honor roll, I was a track star. I just needed to be perfect to do something else to prove I was worthy, because that's really how I got attention from, especially my dad, who was a track star. And I'd get any attention I could. Now, that doesn't mean that he didn't love me, because of course he did, but you just keep feeling like you have to be perfect. So now I'm 18, and my mom takes me to a church, and we never went to church. And if we did, maybe it's called the Christmas and Easter, the C&E, people.
Yes.
But it was such a very, I want to say, not a live church.
Got it.
I didn't really ever hear that Jesus loves you personally. I didn't understand that. However, I always had this desire to know Jesus and this heart for God and wanted to know him more. I just didn't know what that meant. And I went to this church, and it was like a Saturday Night Live spoof, because it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I mean, people their hands were up and they were singing, and then I was like, oh, this is, I was uncomfortable because I was like, this is very different. But then the pastor started talking, and he was just not in a big, gown or anything. He was just talking to me personally. I felt like he was speaking directly to me. And of course, he was speaking to everyone.
Yes.
And his words were, Jesus loves you unconditionally. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to be something. He loves you unconditionally. And I thought, oh, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life, is for someone to love me unconditionally. I think he said, raise your hand. I didn't want to raise my hand because I'm like, I don't want to embarrass myself. My hand shot up so fast.
That's so funny.
Because I couldn't control it.
Wow.
I do have an exuberant personality. And Jesus then said after that to me in my heart, you don't have to apologize for how you were made. I love you. You're not too much for me. So when I gave my life to him that day and I got his love, it was what I always was craving, for someone to love me unconditionally.
Wow.
And we know now, as more mature Christians, that he creates that part in us that only he can fill. And that's a wise creator, to create in his creation a part that only he can fill. But I was so desolate for love that when I heard that from the pastor, that he loved me unconditionally, and then God filled me with that love, I was in. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know anything about you. I didn't even know a Bible verse. I mean, I think I probably could have recited John 3:16, which I don't know how, but I didn't even know what that meant. And once he helped me know that I was loved, everything changed for me.
Wow.
Everything changed for me. And I remember thinking, I need to now go back. I was in college. I was at the University of Kansas at the time. And now I need to go back and I need to learn what that really means. Because emotionally I'd experienced something.
Right.
But I am a thinking person.
Yes.
Even though I'm very exuberant and outgoing, I need to know what I'm thinking. That's how God created me. Very excitable and love people and love to connect. But I also want to know and be a thinking person too. So those are my two sides of my personality. So then I went and started researching what it means. And the more I studied my Bible, the more the parts of me that had been hurt growing up, not personally, it wasn't ever personal. It was just the struggle that my own parents had. And then I started healing from great trauma. And so if you read the book, and you will, I know,
yes,
I can't wait for you to read it.
Wait.
You've been so supportive. But one of the main things that happened to me that was so traumatic, but now I know God used it for good. Even back then, even though I did not know God when I was 16 and this traumatic event happened, I think God gives you this wisdom. I still knew that somehow God did this for me, even though it was terribly traumatic. So I think God gives us this knowledge before we even know him. So I'm 16 and I'm telling you, I'm in every activity. I'm in the yearbook. I'm in every single event because I need to be. And I do like to be involved too. So it works well for me. And my stepfather, who's an alcoholic, and he's an abusive stepfather, he comes to my place of work at the Dairy Freeze, which is a little small town in Kansas. It'd be like a Dairy Queen.
Yes,
Everyone has their own Tasty Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Dairy Queen, and I worked there. And you know, when I'm trying to get my math done, I'm trying to, get to track practice because we've got regionals. And he comes to, and it seems like a dream when I say this, he comes to my place of work, this Dairy Freeze, and said, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm so respectful, even though he doesn't really deserve for me to be respectful. And so I said, I get off, and it just so happened, in 10 minutes I said, I'll come out. And I came out, it's like a dream. He tells me, you're the reason your mom and I are not getting along, and you need to be gone by tonight. And I did not let him see me sweat. In my mind, do not give that to him because I don't like him at all. I tolerate him. He's not doing things that are good. And I chronicle those in the book. But I still remain calm, like this strong Suze takes over. And then he turns around and leaves, and I completely fall apart because I'm homeless. Can't live in my car. And my dad, unfortunately, suffering from drinking too much too, so I can't go live with him. I have no place to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so that's a big scene in the book where you've got this girl who needs to be perfect, and now I don't have a home. And it's fictional, but that part of the book is my story. And this little small town in Kansas, Gardner, Kansas, they rally around me and they make sure I'm not an at-risk kid.
Wow.
They rally around me, and this is going to sound like it's fake because when I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did that happen? I end up living with my math teacher and track coach's brother and sister. I dated his son. We're not dating anymore. Can you imagine?
Wow.
I do not know these people.
Yes.
I have not been in their house. And they let me come in and live with them for the rest of high school. And they would never take $1.
Wow.
And then I went on and went to college and moved on. Now, Ellen, who does that? Who does that? So really writing the story Saving Summer is really a testament to this town and to those people. And the two people that I moved in with, they're now dead. And even my coach and my math teacher, he's dead now too. He's gone, and his beautiful wife. But it was really me writing a thank you note to what a town did for me.
That's amazing. Suzy, that had to also be really difficult with your relationship with your mom to know that she would allow that to happen. And maybe at the time you were understanding that maybe she didn't feel like she had other choices because she's kind of joined to this other man. But how did you process that and see that? And how have you been able to forgive your parents?
Such a good question. Well, we know that Jesus is the only way you forgive, because he's forgiven us so much. Because on the cross, he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. Now, at that time, I didn't understand that because I had no spiritual awareness. However, God in my heart let me know that this was the best thing that could ever happen to me.
Wow.
Because in the house, it was so traumatic.
Okay.
So somehow, even though it was painful, and I will not deny how painful it was, I could even, you see my eyes water, I could even start crying. But somehow, and this is God, somehow he lets us kind of move past what's really going on to see what is the actual issue. And I knew that somehow God, and I didn't say Jesus, but I said God in my mind, God has had him kick me out to rescue me from this house.
Wow.
And that has to be from God, because that's not a 16-year-old's ability. However, the pain that my mom didn't stick up for me, let it happen. Did she know? Did she not know? Where is she? And then she didn't reach out to me for a long time. And I'm in a little small town, living in the same town that she is. It was crushing. And I think this is a story I want to tell, that when you feel, for whatever reasons, your parents or your mom, especially your mom, can't love you the way you need to be, it's crushing. And you need that love. And you can tell, because you've already explained this, I'm a person who likes to love, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm a person I love deeply. That's just how God created me. And to not feel that, especially at that time at 16, was soul crushing. It was soul crushing. And I carried that with me. But isn't it interesting? And of course, my mom gave birth to me. I'm not here without my mom.
Yes.
And then my mom, in her struggle, took me to church, and I got to find Jesus. Isn't God amazing?
That is amazing.
Isn't God amazing? And
Yes.
that's where I actually felt the love in church from Jesus. That's the better love of all loves. He's the lover of our soul. He's the only one that can meet our needs. That doesn't mean that I still didn't need a mom, because I did.
Right.
But it's so interesting to me that it would be Jesus using my mom to take me to church. So forgiveness has been a process. I always say it's like peeling an onion. It's just layer after layer after layer. And when I think back to her time with my stepfather, she was just surviving. She had no power. She was just surviving. It was not personal. Now, that's easy to say now as an adult, but what God did for me, and again, I had a lot of success in my activities, and that kind of carried me till I could be secure enough to actually look at what had happened and what was going on. And then think about, as a teacher now, you have a student come in my class, I get it. You can't imagine the things the students have told me.
Wow.
And I say, I know what that's like. I've had a girl get kicked out. I've taught from kindergarten to high school, and I do all middle school now, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So what these kids share with me, I say, I felt it. I understand. I know what it feels like. But I can tell them, you're going to be okay. Now, I used to work at a Christian school. I now work at the secular school, public school. So I can't say Jesus is the answer, but I can pray for them.
Yes.
I mean, I can't pray with them, but I can pray for my students privately. And, I'm praying for them when they're talking to me.
Yes.
And I've said to them, I've experienced something similar. Look at me now. I'm teaching. Think what you're going to do. Think of the people you're going to help through this pain. I have pulled, well, not literally, but I had a boy, such a cool kid, who was feeling so unloved. And he was on the tracks trying to kill himself.
Wow.
And we pulled him off the tracks, not literally, but we found out and we helped him, and he was angry and he was hurt. And I remember saying to him over and over, and he'd come talk to me, I'd say, I've been hurt by my parents too. I know. And I do tell them the only answer is forgiveness, because they don't really know what they're doing. And I wish I could tell them that Jesus is forgiveness, but I can't tell that piece.
Yeah.
I can't do that in a public school. But you just keep praying, you just keep pouring in, you keep pouring in, you keep pouring in. So I saw him right before COVID. He was thriving in high school.
Wow.
He was thriving. He said, Mrs. Ryan, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm doing. And you know what? Look at that. And it was a really touch and go situation. And it was because he didn't feel loved. So he got what he needed. Because you know what? It's not about me. It's about God meeting these needs.
Right.
And God meets everyone's needs.
Yes.
According to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus.
Yes.
And God met this student's needs.
Yes.
So I remember.
And if I can just intersect here. Not only that, but God saw him, saw his needs, and connected him with someone who could help him.
And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
even
what happened.
Save his life, I'll say.
And that's what happened. And then I step back and I think, God, you're so amazing to use my pain to connect. Because people who have suffered like this boy has and I have, you can feel it with a person. You know it. You know it. And if I hadn't been able to speak into his pain, and I'd said, when he shared with me things, I said, this is exactly what happened to me. I won't tell you more because I don't think you need to know more, but I know what this feels like. And I know it's hard. And I know you're going to be okay. And you're going to help kids with your story.
Wow.
And so that's the great redemption, the great exchange. Yes. Right? And I love the Bible verse that says, what the enemy means for evil, God will use for good. Because it wasn't good that I got kicked out.
Right.
I wish I would have had the family I wanted. And I've tried to create in my own 3 kids the family I didn't get. And of course, I haven't been a perfect mother, but I love my kids. I say I'm the equal opportunity overfunctioner. Because I probably overfunction too much for my kids, but I love my kids. But it wasn't good that I got kicked out. But God, if we allow it, can use it for good. Yes. And he has done that over and over and over in my students' lives. I used to be surprised at it. And now, because every year, the kids that are suffering find me and we connect. And I do love to connect.
Yes.
I've always loved to connect.
Yes.
And I think that was the hardest part in my family, that was the alcoholism and there was drug use. And I just needed to connect. We're all created to connect, but some people a little bit more.
Yes,
so God gave me other people to connect with. And the people that came in to help me, I'm just in awe of them.
That's awesome. All right, so you mentioned the words redemption and the great exchange. Tell us more what you mean by that.
Well, everyone has pain, and it's all relative. So it may not be the pain that I've experienced, but people's pain is real. And you think about Jesus on the cross, Friday's a bad day. In fact, even when I taught in public school, we have to teach on Good Friday, I couldn't do anything. We were supposed to have this big poetry cafe. I said, I can't do it on Good Friday. I can't. Good Friday is a bad day for Jesus. Obviously, he dies. He chooses to die for our sins. But Sunday's coming.
Yes.
And Sunday is the great exchange. Sunday is the redemption. And then he is resurrected. So when we have the Fridays that are bad, and getting kicked out was bad. This boy, what he suffered that made him go to the tracks to try to kill himself, it was bad. But the great exchange, when we let God have it, God redeems it. Again, what the enemy means for evil, God uses for good. And then God makes us then who we're created to be, so we can reach out and help others. And that's his promise. That's what he modeled. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. He's modeling what we're supposed to do. And if we give him that pain, he turns it into praise and promise, the hurt into healing, the worry into worship, the trials into triumph, testimony. It's Jesus. It's his plan for us. Now, it sounds almost trite to say that because I'm not diminishing the pain, because the pain is real.
Right.
But when we give him the pain, that's my life. This is Isaiah 61. Beauty for ashes, a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair, oil of gladness instead of mourning. This is his promise if we give that pain to him. And you know what? Don't we all need to hear that today?
Oh, yes.
A crown of beauty instead of ashes?
Right.
Hallelujah.
What hope.
Well, and that's what the kids need today that I'm teaching, especially after COVID. Especially after being shut down, especially after their world turned upside down. And again, I can't say those verses in my school, but I can live them.
Right, you can live them.
I think they know there's something different about me.
Yes.
Because we go in every day and I say, okay, this is not just Christian, it's secular. When we thank, it doesn't even have to be God, but when we have a thankful spirit, we are transformed and we're changed. So we go in and I say, what's something great that happened to you? What are you thankful for today? And we list them on the board. We're thankful. And maybe you can't find anything today. Well, we have clean water. We don't have oxygen tanks. We're breathing. We've got free air. And then they're like, oh, my family. Oh, I had waffles this morning. Oh, yeah. I get to be on a club volleyball team. And then we all start thinking. And then I tell them, that doesn't mean the things that have happened to you aren't hard. I'm not diminishing that.
Right.
But we can choose. We can choose to be thankful and see what's good in our lives, and it transforms us.
Yes.
So they know there's something different about me.
Very cool.
They know. And I tell them, if I tell you the things I'm going through, you'd be like, oh my gosh, Mrs. Ryan, how are you out of bed? But I'm going to choose to be thankful. And then what I can't say to them is because God's done so much for me.
Yes.
But that is the truth.
Yes. That's great.
So you wanted to know a God story.
Yes.
Okay, hold on to your hat,
Okay.
Ellen. Okay, now this is God has been so faithful to all of us, but he's been so faithful to me. So I explained the CPS training. You're looking for kids with trauma. And as a teacher, and you probably went through these trainings too,
yes.
You're identifying trauma because kids with trauma can have unexplained physical issues,
right.
Many times heart issues, growing up because of the fight or flight trauma they've experienced growing up. So I am so healthy. God has blessed me to be so healthy. I'm an Ironman.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So we'll talk about that for sure.
So an Ironman isn't for, just going out to train casually. I mean, it's intense.
Okay, tell us what an Ironman is.
So I'll tell you about the Ironman. So I was a sprinter growing up, but an Ironman is a race, an event where you swim 2.4 miles. Okay, that's a big day.
Yes.
And then you hop on a bike, and then you bike 112.
Wow.
Okay, so that, I always tell my students, that's like to Los Angeles. And then you run a marathon, which is 26 miles. So that's a big day. I did one of those, and I wanted to hear, coming across the line, Suzy Ryan, you are an Ironman. And it was gnarly.
Wow.
It was gnarly.
I cannot imagine.
And when you do an Ironman, there's always something that is a struggle. So when people do an Ironman, usually it's the nutrition that dogs them, because that's a long time to be on the bike and a long time to run and a long time to swim, and you are depleting yourself. So I trained with some professional Ironman women, and I picked their brain on everything. So I had my nutrition perfect, which is really probably the hardest thing.
Sounds like it.
And I trained really hard and well. But usually there's always another thing that happens that's just tricky. The bike was the hardest for me. You would think the bike would be so easy, but oh my gosh, all those miles. So when I transported my bike, I had 2 spokes break, which is like, oh my gosh. But when I tried to get them fixed there, I did it at Tempe, Arizona. They said, oh no, we don't have time to do that because everyone was there with their bikes. So we're just going to adjust this and you'll be fine. Well, I really wasn't, because then I was in a position that was tricky for me. And when I got off the bike, I didn't realize that when I got off the bike out of mile 6, I pulled a groin muscle.
No.
Because I was in a weird situation because of the spokes or whatever they did. And I'm not even judging them because they didn't have time. Everyone's got these issues. So here I am, and I'm realizing, okay, I really don't want to do another one, but I want to finish. So mile 6, I'm in a lot of pain. I got 20 more to go.
Wow.
And so I start praying. I start praying for everyone I know just to get my mind off of it. And I'm in pain. I'm going slow. So I'm not going to have the time that I wanted to have. I don't even care. I just want to finish. And running is my best event of the 3. So I'm thinking, because I had a fast time in my swim, my bike was faster than I could have gone. So I'm thinking, I am going to rock this. Maybe they're going to invite me to Kona. Maybe, I'm like, I'm ready to go. Because remember, at my heart, I really do like to perform.
Yes.
Even though it's now not my security, I'm still, that's just how God made me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get the best time. And then mile 6, the groin pulse. So then I'm thinking, okay, I've got to finish this. Then I'm like at 15. Then all of a sudden, nothing will work. Gatorade, nothing works. Nothing will keep you hydrated. So I started taking ice chips every mile. Then I'm pretty much at 20. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, 6 miles. I can do this. Like the Lord was just getting me to the next level. Then pretty much it was 2 miles. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've only got 2 miles to go. Then it was a 400. I'm like, I'm a 400 runner. I can do a 400. Then pretty much I had 100. I'm like, I was a sprinter. I could do this. So I sprinted through. Thankfully, I didn't hurt myself.
Yes.
Because, I could, but I finished it. I finished the Ironman.
Wow.
And I was like, God, it's kind of like writing a book. It feels the same. An Ironman feels the same as a book. But anyway, so I finished that. And so I loved being an Ironman. I recovered pretty fast. I was just glad to finish. So, I'm an athlete. 2 years later, I'm in my classroom. We're having a big poetry cafe, the one that I didn't want to do on Good Friday.
Yes.
I always had this 7th grade poetry cafe where I invited all the parents and the poems that the students had written. We have a big buffet table, and it's just a big celebration, and they read their poems. I'm up there in front, and all of a sudden, I feel myself go completely, almost numb.
Wow.
And I feel hot, and then I feel cold, and then I feel sick to my stomach, and then I feel like there's a TV on my chest. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I'm having trouble breathing. So in the middle, I wait for my student poet to finish. I say, what a good job, which I'm sure it was. And then I say, okay, let's sit down. You guys go through the buffet table again, and we're just going to take a little break. And I go over to my desk. I'm like, oh my gosh, God help me. I don't know what's going on. And a woman comes over and she said, are you okay? And I said, well, no, I don't feel good. She said, you're white as a sheet.
Wow.
She said, have you eaten? And I said, no, I must be dehydrated. Because in the Ironman, like what I just experienced going through, I mean, that was pain getting through those last 20 miles.
Yes.
But you just do it. You figure it out and you do it. And it's like, then I recovered and I was okay. And you go to the next level. It's like, okay, I can do this. She goes, well, have you eaten? And I said, well, a banana. She said, is that your banana? I'm like, well, I guess I didn't eat the banana. I said, how about you go get me 6 of those chocolate donuts? So she got me 6 of those little baby donuts. I ate them. I felt great. So I got back up. I finished teaching my class. Now I'm training at that point for a marathon. Okay. And I want to really get a good time. I'm really training hard.
Yes.
You need to train hard. I took all the food to the homeless, the rest of the food. I ran after that. And then I have another incident. This was on a Tuesday. On a Saturday, because I'm doing my bike and have that same feeling. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to eat before I exercise. Something has changed in my body. What is going on? Then on Sunday, I'm in the pool doing masters at Alga Norte, and it's long course. And the pool, when it's really cold, I have to really swim hard. I'm more of a natural runner than a swimmer. The same thing happens again. Something weird. I hear a voice, and it's a voice.
Wow.
And this voice I know to be Jesus.
Wow.
And this voice says, stop swimming, get out of the pool. So I stop swimming. I tread water to the side, get out of the pool. And my daughter's with me. And she takes me to urgent care, but they can't find anything. And I feel fine again. And then they send me to the ER. They can't find anything. So now they have a choice to either send me home, but I have a cool doctor who I actually swam masters with.
Wow, that's great.
Which is another God thing. So I tell my kids, don't come. I'm good. They're going to keep me overnight just to look. And the doctor says, we're going to do a stress test where they spike your heart. You go really hard, and then they check your heart and just see what's going on. So still can't find anything. The next day, they're doing EKGs the whole time. The next day, they're like, we're taking you to the cath lab. So what had happened is I had 3 heart attacks.
Whoa.
And they were painful. It's like a TV being on your chest. And all that I suffered, and my main artery, wow, the Widowmaker's artery, the LAD,
yes,
has shredded.
Oh my goodness.
And that's, of course, not getting blood to the heart. And now I have a shredded artery. They did not know that. If they would have gone in to balloon me, it would have just killed me.
Oh,
it would just kill me. So this is all a good story because my cardiologist knew there was something really weird. It's called SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. A SCAD event, my doctor called it bad luck. It's a fluke thing that happens with people that have no heart issues, that have no plaque, that have no high blood pressure. It's just something that just happens. And he went in and he told my husband, and then my sister came and he said, oh, I'll just, she'll be out in 30 minutes. I'm just going to check. Well, I don't know, 2.5 hours later, he ended up putting in 3 extra long stents. And during the cath lab where they go in and check, you're awake, but it's really weird. It's like they should just put you out. Please put me out.
Yes.
But I wake, I see my heart beating on this screen, and I hear him say, in his Stanford brilliance, train, cardiology, word choices, it's not working. Very calm, it's not working. And I'm like, Jesus, heal my heart, Jesus, heal my heart, Jesus, heal my heart. And then I go back out. And then I come back to, and I hear him say again, it's not working, we need another one. Before I go back out, Jesus, heal my heart, Jesus, heal my heart, Jesus, heal my heart. And then I go back out, and then I come back to, and I hear him with just a slight inflection of joy. It took. So what happened was, as he was trying to put stents in, it kept shredding.
Wow.
But it was shredding from the top down, kind of like the temple when Jesus resurrected,
the
and the Holy of Holies, the Holy of Holies, it shreds from the top down. It gives me goosebumps because if it would have shredded from the bottom up, I would not have lived. But because it shredded from the top down, he just had to get past the shredding, and then it took.
Oh my goodness.
So he gave me my whole life back. God gave my whole life back through him. And my whole heart completely healed. My heart's completely healed. And I, of course, don't train like I used to. You know, I'm just thankful to be alive. I'm thankful to be alive. However, back to the original thought, when kids suffer trauma, they have unexplained heart issues and other issues.
Yes.
And I know that was the trauma I suffered as a kid, but in God's mercy and grace, he allowed me to heal so I could see my son's wedding.
Wow.
So I could see my second son's wedding. So I could be there for my daughter's wedding.
Yes.
That was 6 years ago.
Wow.
And I am so honored that God let me live. Now we know, absent from the body, present from the Lord. Heaven is great. Heaven is a celebration. Heaven is going to be more than we can even ask or imagine.
Yes.
But I also know I have work to do on this earth and to be with my family. And I feel like writing the book has been my work.
Yes.
It's a bridge of hope for people who have suffered. Because I have suffered, but God has redeemed it. And even the SCAD event is redeemed because now I can tell people, even with the SCAD event, God was in it. God told me, Suzy, you're not getting what is going on. You have got to get to the hospital, you know? And so now I've been on TV talking about the SCAD event, and I say, go. I didn't go because women think, Ellen, we don't have heart issues. Women think we don't have heart attacks. And my mistake, and again, you know, God in his mercy saved me, is you just go and get it checked out. Because if something's strange like that, you just go. Because people die from that.
Yes.
And we think as women, well, you know, we just have to do it. We're just fine. You know, we're just okay.
Yes.
There's a time to be tough and strong like that. And there's a time to say, yeah, take me to the ER. I'm going to get this checked out. God has redeemed so much of my life. And then I got to live, to tell my story, to encourage others.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm just so grateful that you were here with us today and could tell us. Everyone, the book is Saving Summer by Suzy, S-U-Z-Y Ryan. And what is the website where they can find this?
The website is SuzyRyan.com. And my daughter has been so helpful, and she's doing my social media, and she's made a beautiful website, and it's been so wonderful to put my heart's desire, which was always to redeem my past and my students' past, in a novel that's, like I said, a bridge of hope to tell people they're victors, not victims. We need to hear today that God's going to use the suffering and turn it into something for good. That doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
Because it's not good.
That's right.
But God is in the redemption business and the great exchange. And he does that. And he did that for me, and he can do it for other people too.
That's so exciting. And I love that you made a company for it called Warrior Press, which warriors are victors.
I love that you got that. I love that you got that. Yes. There's a character in the book that calls the main character Summer.
Oh,
You're a warrior.
It.
And aren't we all warriors?
Yes.
Because we're all overcoming something. And God is at work and helping us overcome what that something is so he can use it for good. So he can transform it.
That's great. I'll be sure to put in the show notes a link to your website. And is your book on audio as well?
Ellen, I had the best opportunity to have the most incredible reader. I always wanted to put it on audio because I listen to audiobooks.
Yes.
As a teacher and a mom, like you clean house, you're listening to the audiobook, pulling weeds.
Anyone commuting.
Well, exactly. So I had a friend who knew a woman named Hillary Huber. And I sent her my story, not knowing anything about her. She was so gracious. She was so kind. And she sent me back a little clip of 3 pages. She said, pick 3 pages and I'll read it. And when she read these 3 pages, I was in tears because it's so surreal to have what you've written come to life. But come to life in such an Academy Award winning way. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, Hillary, I want you to read this. So then we set that up for her to read it. And then I sent the little clip to a librarian who actually was my beta reader. And she's on the front cover because she gave me a blurb. She was phenomenal. Katie sent back a message that said, oh my gosh, it's Hillary Huber. Do you know who she is? I'm like,
wow.
No. And she goes, oh my gosh, she did this and this and this and this. And I thought, well, I better Google her. Well, I Googled her, and she's an award-winning reader, reads famous authors, and she read my book.
Wow.
And the book characters are so nuanced and complicated. And I needed a reader who could really have a heart and make them sympathetic, because there's a lot of pain in the book. But yet, people who hurt people or people hurt themselves.
Yes.
Hurt people hurt other people. However, free people help free other people. So I needed it read where there was sympathy for the people that were hurting people, because no one sets out to do that. They're just struggling with their own pain. And she did it. And so then I said to her, oh my gosh, you didn't tell me you're this famous reader. And she was so humble. And she said, well, it so happened that I had this one opening that I could do your book. So it is an audio, and I've had a lot of people read the audio. In fact, I have one person who read it and liked it so much, he started it again. It's read so well that he was listening to it on his commute and just started it again.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah, the audio is a gift from God.
That is awesome. I'll look forward to listening too. And I believe you have a couple of book signings coming up in San Diego.
Well, this is such a miracle.
Tell me about that.
Gosh, this is just God's favor.
Yes.
Because I'm a school teacher. I've just been asking God to just help me and show me how to publicize the book, because Warrior Publishing is what published it, LLC. However, even if you go with a big publishing company, you have to do your book promotion. And so by some miracle, I have Warwick's down in La Jolla, which we know that is just amazing. And that is Sunday, June 4th from 12 to 2.
Wow.
And I will be there speaking. And I would love anybody and everyone to come, because I want to support Warwick's. I love the local bookstores.
Yes.
And I love that I get to support them and that they would support me.
Yes.
So that is such an honor. And then the second one I have is Barnes & Noble in Encinitas, and that is Saturday the 17th. And that one is from 1 to 3.
Okay.
But I love that those two bookstores would allow me to come and sell my books. And my prayer is that they sell out so many books that they are so happy that they had Saving Summer in. I'm just honored that they would support my book.
That's great. And I love too that it gives you a bigger audience, because you have such a heart for helping people. The more people who know about it and can read it, the more people, of course, will be helped. So that's fantastic.
Ellen, that is exactly what I want. I want the book to go to all the hurting people, because the experience I've had with the people who've read it, when they read it, whatever they've been hurt from is brought out from the Lord, even if they don't know the Lord, because it's not a Christian book.
Right.
It's not a Christian book. It's a Jesus book, but it is not a Christian book. And Jesus is just sprinkled through. It's a very, I like to say it is like a glass castle with Jesus. And Jesus is not front and center at all. So it's not a Christian book. But people that read it, the Holy Spirit, because it's filled with the Holy Spirit, brings out the pain. And then Jesus helps heal that pain. And how I know this is because the people then will contact me and say, here's what I experienced, just like my students.
Wow.
And I'm so honored. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what happened to me.
Yes.
And then we can connect. And look how God is so good. All I ever wanted to do was connect. And my family wasn't as healthy to be able to connect when I was young. And look how God is restoring the years the locusts have eaten, right?
Yes.
Now I've got people, my students connecting with me and other people connecting. And that's actually my heart, is to connect and share stories. That's what makes me the happiest. And the book is doing that.
That's fantastic. It makes me think of C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, who wrote these beautiful, wonderful stories filled with God's principles, God's ways, really God himself. But it wasn't directly about Jesus. And yet that gave people those principles and truth to read about. And then it also was a way for people to learn about God, because as people wanted to find out more about C.S. Lewis or J.R.R. Tolkien, they're going to be researching more or finding out more about who God himself is. So God just is able to do it. He's able to attract us through what we see, read, conversations, etc. He is really going to use this. So I'm so excited.
That's brilliant analysis. And you have given me my best compliment. And I'm going to receive it. If I can have in the same conversation C.S. Lewis and Tolkien too, I mean, I'm taking that as a win. That is a great day. And I'm receiving that. Hallelujah.
That's awesome.
Hallelujah, Ellen. Made my day.
Woo! Woo! All right. Well, boy, Suzy, it has been such a pleasure to be here with you today, and I'm so excited for the listeners to get to hear your stories and to read your story as well. So thank you again.
Thank you for giving me the privilege to come here, and it is a privilege. God bless you. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. This is Ellen Bennett with the Extraordinary Lives podcast.